Welcome to Lesson 3 of Eclipse and Java for total beginners. This lesson is going to be great. We're going to try out the person class using the Eclipse Java scrapbook. The scrapbook is a hidden gem inside Eclipse, especially if you're just learning Java. It's a great way to try out Java statements and see what they do. To use the scrapbook, we need to create what's called a new scrapbook page. So I'm going to select my project. I'm going to right click, say New, go down to Other, expand Java, and expand Java Run Debug. This is why I call it a hidden gem. It's kind of hidden in there. Then we just have to give it a name. I'm just going to call it My Scrapbook. Doesn't really matter what we call it. And we've got a scrapbook page. The scrapbook allows us to run Java code interactively and see the results. Let's start with something easy. We'll go 2 plus 2, and there's several ways we can do it. We can go run. I'm going to say inspect, and 2 plus 2 equals 4. Well, that seems like a good start. Now let's try something a little bit more complicated. I'm going to backspace there, and I'm going to go int a equals 5. Then I'm going to say a equals a times 10, and I notice I'm putting semicolons at the end of these because these are statements, and then now I'm going to just list a because this is an expression and it needs to return a single value. So now I'm going to highlight that. We highlight the text, and I can just hit this button which does the same thing as the run inspect, and now I get 50. Let's take a look at that. I'm setting a to 5. I'm multiplying a times 10, so it's 5 times 10. So 50 looks good. Now let's look at a slightly different way to use the execute option. One very common command you'll see in Java, especially when you're learning, is the following. System out println, and then something, usually some text. So we'll say hello world. Now this is a statement, it's not an expression. So if I highlight this, I don't want to hit inspect because there's nothing to inspect, but I can hit execute the selected text, which is the same here as run execute. And what I get is hello world printing down here in the console window. A lot of Java books and tutorials assume that you're running Java from your system command line. If so, then the system out println command would print at the command line. In Eclipse, console output displays down here in the console view. You'll see this command a lot in sample Java programs because it provides a simple way to print out messages that indicate what the program is doing. Before we start with our person class, we need to talk just a little more about Java packages. The Java language has hundreds of built-in classes. Many more classes are available to Java developers from other organizations. And that's a really great thing about Java. Often a piece of code we need is already written and available for us to use. But how can we make sure our class names won't conflict with someone else's? Is it possible for someone else to have a class called person? And if so, is that going to cause us a problem? How's the compiler going to know which person to use when we try to use the person class? That's where packages come in. The package provides a full name for each class. So the package statement in our person class is telling the compiler that the full name of the person class is org total beginner tutorial.person. And we only have to be worried about person being a unique class name inside this package, which of course we have control over. Now the reason we need to think about this right now is because this scrapbook page is not inside the package. If I'm inside the package, meaning I have a source file that says this source file is part of this package, that this class is part of the package, then I don't have to, I can just refer to things by their simple name. But since I'm outside the package, I need to do what's called an import statement. And fortunately, that's really easy to do. We add the package to our scrapbook page by finding the set import declarations, hit the button. I'm going to move it down so you can see. We say add packages, and I can start typing the first part of the name, org total beginner tutorial, and it'll add all of the classes that are in that package. So now the scrapbook knows if I say person, I really mean org total beginner dot tutorial dot person. Now let's actually create a new person object. The syntax for this is as follows. I say person P is just a name I made up, equals new person, and then I end with the semicolon. So what this is saying is person is the type, P is just my scratch variable name, equals new person. Now new is a reserved word in Java that tells the Java compiler that we want to create a new object of type person. And to do that, we're calling the constructor for the person class. Remember over here inside the person class, we wrote a constructor that said set the named unknown name, set the maximum books equals to 3. And the way that the compiler knows to run that constructor is with this new word, the new keyword, and you can see it's red, so it's a Java keyword. And then remember, we want to evaluate to an expression if we want to use the inspect button. So I'm going to put P, which just tells me that I'm going to be looking at P after I've executed this statement. I hit the inspect button, and we have our first look at our own object. So if we look at this object, we can see that we've got maximum books equals 3 and name equals unknown name. So that's just what we would expect. Now let's try out our set and get methods. If I type, I've got my person object in the variable P. Now when I type the period, look what happens. I get a whole bunch of methods here. Now some of these methods, the get maximum books and get name, set maximum books, set name, I recognize those methods, but I've got a bunch of other methods that I didn't write. So what's going on here? Well, what we're seeing here is our first example of inheritance in Java. Java has a class called object, and object is like the granddaddy of all classes. So every class in Java has some built-in methods that the class inherits from the object class. So we'll talk more about inheritance as we go along. Now back to business. The way we invoke a method on an object is to hit the period. When I do that in Eclipse, I get a nice list of all of the methods that are available to me from this object. So let's find the setName method, select that, and it wants a string input, and let's change the name to Fred, and we will inspect the results. So I highlight, hit inspect, and sure enough, this person's name is now Fred. Okay, now let's try the other set method, set maximum books. This time it wants an integer, so we'll set it to 10, and again we'll put in P so we can inspect the variable P, and as we expect, there's maximum books equals 10. So far so good. Now let's try one of our get methods, and this time, just for fun, we'll use a little bit different way to execute it. So we'll go P get, let's get the name, And again, we'll leave it as an expression. We won't put the semicolon there. Highlight it, and this time we'll try display result of evaluating selected text. This is a little different than inspect, as you'll see, because what it does is it just displays it right here in my scrapbook. So it's telling me this is a string, and it's telling me the value of the string is Fred, which is what we want. Before we wrap up lesson 3, let's just try one more. The other method, we'll try get maximum books. Hit Control space, and again I'll leave it without the semicolon, and I'll go back to our inspect method, and again the get maximum book method evaluates to 10, which is what we would want and expect. Let's try one more real-life example. Let's pretend that we forgot to type the quote up here, and we forgot to type the parentheses after the method. I'm going to expand this by double-clicking so we get a little better view. Highlight, press inspect, and we get these 2 error messages up here about each of the mistakes we made. Now, when you're typing everything by hand, it's very, very easy to make mistakes like forgetting quotes, forgetting parentheses, forgetting a curly brace, and so on. So using Eclipse's Code Assist not only saves us typing, but it also really cuts down on the typing errors. So we've reached the end of lesson number 3. The Eclipse Scrapbook is a great tool for learning Java. You can just try different commands and methods and see what happens without having to write an entire program. This is a great way to learn and explore the different Java class libraries. In the next lesson, we're going to learn how to build automated test programs so we can test our code like the pros do. This is Mark Dexter saying so long for now.